Warriors, legends. Men who made history with nothing but muscle, metal, and an unreasonable hatred for staying home. Today we're diving into the greatest warriors in history, with jokes no one dared to tell until now. Because sure, history can be brutal, bloody, and filled with more backstabbing than a season of Game of Thrones on fast forward. But you know what else it is? Downright hilarious. So buckle up, history nerds, because we're about to take a joyride through the battlefields of the past. Let's kick things off with Leonidas, the king of Sparta, who was basically the human equivalent of a protein shake and a right hook. This is the guy who shouted, "This is Sparta," and kicked a man into a well. Honestly, who needs diplomacy when you've got footwork like that? This man led 300 Spartans against an entire Persian army. That's not bravery, folks. That's what happens when your country doesn't have HR and your only options are fight to the death or update your LinkedIn. Now you might be thinking 300 men against an army? Those are terrible odds, and you'd be right. It's like bringing a butter knife to a chainsaw fight. But Leonidas and his Spartans, they were the kind of guys who bring a butter knife to a chainsaw fight and somehow win. Probably because they were ripped, like seriously ripped. You see, Spartans didn't wear armor on their thighs because they believed leg day was sacred. And honestly, I kind of respect it. You don't need shields when your quads look like granite meatballs. Just imagine the Persian army sweating in the desert heat, and then they see these Spartan dudes rocking up, thighs glistening in the sun. Talk about psychological warfare. Next up, we've got Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's answer to the question, what if one sword just isn't extra enough? This guy was basically a walking, talking highlight reel of sword-swinging badassery. We're talking about a man who won over 60 duels. And guess what? His first duel was at age 13. At 13, I was losing fights to my blanket every morning. This guy was basically born with a sword in his hand and a killer instinct. He was so good, so effortlessly cool, that he once showed up late to a duel just to mess with his opponent's head. That's next level psychological warfare, also known as the teenage sleep schedule. But Musashi wasn't just about brute force. Oh no, he was an innovator, a true artist of the blade. He even invented his own two-sword fighting style, because apparently one deadly weapon wasn't aesthetic enough. Look, if you're going to be a legendary swordsman, you might as well do it with a little flair, right? All right, folks, time to meet the original Mama Bear, the woman who put the fury in warrior queen Boudica. When the Romans, those toga-wearing, wine-guzzling conquerors, decided to mess with her family, well, let's just say Boudica didn't send a strongly worded letter. She burned down 3 Roman cities. 3. If you think your mum gets mad when someone touches the thermostat, try crossing the woman who makes Attila the Hun look like a disgruntled chihuahua. And her weapon of choice? Oh, just your average, everyday chariot. Except Boudica's chariot, yeah, it had spikes on the wheels. That's not a war machine. That's the historical version of Fast and Furious Celtic Drift. Can you imagine the Romans all lined up in their little formations, and then boom, Boudica comes crashing through the lines like a vengeful Roomba with a serious upgrade? The Romans, in their infinite wisdom, were probably all like, it's fine, she's just a woman. Famous last words, my friends, famous last words. Because Boudica and her Iceni tribe, they were all about that girl power before it was even a hashtag. They were like, you want to underestimate us? Fine. But don't be surprised when your cities end up looking like a discount bin of burnt toast. Chapter 4. Now let's talk about Genghis Khan, the man who was basically the world's most successful multi-level marketer, except instead of selling essential oils, he was selling, well, conquering. This is the guy who built the largest contiguous empire in history, and probably the largest family tree too. Seriously, geneticists say 1 in 200 people today might be descended from Genghis Khan, which means family reunions would require stadiums and a really awkward group chat, and his management style, let's just say it was a little direct. He once said, the greatest happiness is to crush your enemies. Now, that's a motivational poster I can get behind, although I think the modern version would be more like, the greatest happiness is crushing debt slowly. But hey, you can't argue with results, right? Genghis Khan united the Mongols, conquered most of Asia, and basically invented horseback networking. He was like the historical equivalent of a really aggressive LinkedIn influencer. Chapter 5. Moving on to Joan of Arc, the patron saint of I can't even get out of bed before noon. This woman led an army at 17. At 17 I was leading a microwave popcorn disaster. And my greatest tactical achievement was figuring out how to sleep through my alarm clock. Joan of Arc. She was busy hearing voices, rocking a suit of armor, and winning battles like it was just another Tuesday. Now, I'm not saying divine intervention isn't a valid military strategy, but I'm pretty sure Joan of Arc could have won those battles just by showing up and being incredibly intimidating. She claimed to have visions from God, which back then made you a military strategist. Today, that gets you a visit from your concerned aunt and a pamphlet on essential oils. But Joan, bless her heart, she was like, yeah, God told me to lead an army. What are you doing with your life? And she did it all while wearing armor, which is smart because medieval battles were basically chaotic mosh pits with swords. Chapter 6. All right, let's talk about Alexander the Great, the overachiever of all overachievers. This guy makes your friend who went to Harvard Law look like they're slacking off. By age 30, he had conquered most of the known world. By 30, I conquered my laundry once. And he was a man who knew what he liked. And what he liked was his own name, because he named over 20 cities after himself, including one after his horse. Talk about a man who loved branding. Alexander the Merch. Can you imagine the marketing meeting? All right, team, we need a new city name, something catchy, something memorable, something that screams, I'm Alexander and I'm here to stay. If Alexander had Instagram, it'd be all shirtless battle selfies, just conquered Persia, no filter, #blessed, #living, my best life, sorry, not sorry. Chapter 7. Shaka Zulu, the warrior king who invented CrossFit. Next up, we've got Shaka Zulu, the military innovator who took one look at African warfare and said, you know what this needs? More stabbing and shorter spears, because efficiency is key, people. He revolutionized warfare in southern Africa. He was like, you guys are still throwing spears? That's cute. Watch this. And his training methods, let's just say they were intense. We're talking barefoot running over thorn bushes, intense. That's either discipline or an early prototype of extreme pedicures. I'm not sure which is more terrifying. He made soldiers run 50 miles just to warm up. That's not an army. That's a gym membership with weapons. Shaka Zulu was basically the drill sergeant of your nightmares, but, you know, effective. Chapter 8. William Wallace, freedom, and probably some blue face paint. Now let's talk about William Wallace, the OG Braveheart. This Scottish warrior was basically the human embodiment of I'm not wearing any pants and I'm coming for you. He led the Scots in the First War of Scottish Independence and he yelled freedom louder than a kid avoiding chores. And let's talk about that blue war paint. They say he wore blue war paint. Honestly, he was either incredibly intimidating or auditioning for the first Smurf reboot. Either way, the man made an impression. He was like, you want to be free? Then grab your kilt and your blue face paint, lads, because we're about to paint the town red with English blood. Sadly, William Wallace's story doesn't have a happy ending. He was captured and executed, but on the bright side, Mel Gibson played him in a movie. In Hollywood, that's basically immortality. So, Chapter 9, Tomoe Gozen, the original I'm Fine warrior woman. And finally, let's wrap things up with Tomoe Gozen, the samurai who was basically the human equivalent of don't judge a book by its cover. This woman was a warrior who fought like a storm with a sword. She once decapitated a warrior in front of everyone like she was just trimming bonsai trees. No big deal. She was described as beautiful and deadly. Basically, the historical version of a woman who texts, I'm fine, you know you're in trouble when she shows up looking flawless with a sword in her hand. And she rode into battle like she was late for a nail appointment and the enemy was in the way. Tomoe Gozen was a legend, a force of nature, and a reminder that you should never, ever underestimate a woman with a sword. History is full of warriors who didn't just fight. They rewrote the rules. Some were strategic geniuses, others were just really angry with the sword. So next time you think your day is hard, remember, you're not barefoot, fighting a horde while shouting, "This is Sparta!" Unless you are, in which case can we get a video of that, because that's impressive. For the rest of us, let's just appreciate the absurdity of it all. The next time you're feeling down, just remember these warriors of laughter. They may have lived in different times, but they all shared one thing in common. They were really good at what they did, and they looked damn good doing it. Don't forget to subscribe and comment your favorite warrior, or just tell us what you'd name your pet sword. Mine would be Stabby McStabface. Don't judge.